What's going on, Mahomies? Jolt here from TheTokenMinorities, and I am back with the draft analysis for the GBA NPA League War. War has been waged between these two excellent leagues, and you know, I'm pretty excited for it. I was actually a part of the first ever league war in draft format, I believe, where the NPL, the league that I pretty much got my start in, competed against another league that was also called the NPL. The acronym stood for a slightly different thing, but even so, I really enjoyed that experience. I've been involved in a couple league wars in the past, and this will be my third one, so I am experienced with the format as a whole. So it'll definitely be very exciting here moving forward, as I'm pretty sure there's a couple other guys in this war that have a little bit of experience in this type of setting, but I definitely would have the most. So yeah, this should be pretty fun here for sure. But we're here to talk a little bit about my draft that I put together for this war. Basically, what you're going to see over the course of the next few days-ish, you're going to see 2 battles get uploaded from this war. I have 2 opponents that I will be facing. I don't know if I'm supposed to actually tell you who I'm going to be playing yet, so I don't think I will here, but I'm sure you will figure that out here soon enough. Make sure to check out the GBA YouTube channel. That is where I'm sure you'll be able to see all of the matchups before we actually upload our battles. So if you want to know who I'm going to be playing before I'm actually uploading the battle, that should be where you go. But let's talk a little bit about the draft here for this series of 2 games that you'll be seeing from me. So my draft is pretty cool. It starts off with a Tapu Koko. I actually had the #1 overall pick in the draft, which I don't know if I've had before. I think I might have had it once. Either way, I got Tapu Koko because that's the mon that I feel like, because I haven't really played in too many leagues, honestly, in 7th generation, so I haven't really had the chance to use Tapu Koko as much as most people have, so I just really wanted to pick it up and use it again because it's a really fun mon. Styx absolutely loves it. I enjoy getting to kind of team build with Styx as well. When he has the Tapu Koko, I'm able to see everything that it can do, its versatility, its power, its utility. Like, it can just do so much for a team, and it's really easy to build around. I'm also recovering from a sickness, so please forgive me if I cough a few times. It's very easy Pokemon to build around for sure, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. But I'm not going to stop there with Koko. Obviously, I have 7 other members on my team. It's an 8-mon draft. I don't think I mentioned that before. We all drafted 8 Pokemon. It's basically a tiers draft with 2 free picks is what it amounted to. And the combination that I really wanted to try at some point in this generation was Tapu Koko Hawlucha. I've seen that used to great success by numerous people, most notably Randy in my season of the GBA D League. And that's just something that I really wanted to try out. So with my 2nd pick overall, which is basically coming all the way back around to the wheel as the #1 pick, I'm going to have the wheel on every, I guess, rounds 2 and 3, rounds 4 and 5, and etc. I'll have a wheel. And I'm going to pick up Hawlucha on that wheel and build around the Tapu Koko Hawlucha core. Now, what's really nice about that core is I'm sure you all know at this point, but just in case you're not familiar with it, Hawlucha does have Unburden as its ability, and that Unburden can immediately be triggered by Electric Seed under Electric Terrain, which basically gives me a defense boost as well as instant Unburden speed, which basically makes Hawlucha a massive setup threat to any team. Most teams don't switch in particularly well to flying types, not to mention flying plus fighting coverage. Flying types typically resisted by steel, and obviously the fighting types deal with that really well. Not to mention also, like, I guess electric types will also switch into flying types, but high jump kick is really good for those too. The only exceptions being those flying birds, but there can be other ways to deal with those as well. Stuff like Zapdos, Thundurus, you know, there's other ways to deal with those Pokemon, but that's one of the few things that really can wall something like Hawlucha. So it's just a really good offensive core to build around. It's nice having those 2 defoggers right away as well. Not that I'm really one to bring defog in most of my matchups, but it is nice to have that defog versatility in case I'm in a matchup where I absolutely need to have a way to get rid of hazards. So just a good core to build around for my offense. And with my 3rd pick in this draft. On the same wheel, I really wanted to get Mega Scizor, but I actually got team sniped on that one. So basically how that worked, I guess I haven't explained that either, so sorry this is kind of organized awkwardly, I guess. But basically how this worked, because it is one league versus another, the GBA tried not to like snipe each other. We all would make our own draft plans and kind of share those draft plans with each other and do our best not to snipe each other unless absolutely necessary. And unfortunately, that absolutely necessary situation did come up here when it came to Mega Scizor. I won't reveal who has Mega Scizor just because I want them to have the opportunity to reveal that to you themselves. But that person really needed Mega Scizor for his team and for his play style that he wanted to have for the team that he was constructing. And I felt like I could adapt, you know, for not having the Mega that I really want. There's other ways for me to do what Mega Scizor would have done for my team. Unfortunately, regular Scizor was also gone at this point in the draft, so I didn't have either of those options despite really wanting those, and I think it would have rounded out that Tapu Koko Hawlucha core quite nicely on the offensive side. But even so, there's another mon that does that very well too, and if there's anything that I learned from Randy in the D League, it's that Tapu Koko and Hawlucha love to have a lot of momentum supporting them, just on top of the momentum that they already supply. So I decided to pick up Hydreigon. That's a mon Randy also had on his team, another mon that had a lot of success with in that season. And obviously that's kind of what I'm modeling this team off of here with my initial core. So I picked up the Hydreigon. I really like on this team that Hydreigon is not forced to be a choice Scarfer. That's the issue I had with Hydreigon in the GBA when I had it. It was almost always forced to be a choice Scarfer because of the way my speed tiers worked on my GBA team. They were all relatively slow. Hydreigon had to be that mon that could revenge +1 threats. So on a team like this, Hawlucha is automatically going to be able to fill that role really in any matchup, which basically takes a lot of pressure then off of the Hydreigon to be that revenge killer from a speed standpoint. So I can use Hydreigon as more of a breaker in this case, which I think Hydreigon actually might be better at than being a choice Scarfer. So that's something I'm really excited to explore with Hydreigon. I really didn't feel like I had the chance to explore that when I had it in the GBA. So that's the, I guess, offensive core that I'm going to initially build around for this team. I still have my Mega option that's sitting around in the back, and there's a lot of stuff that I'm thinking about for that, but I also realized that I think already excuse me, I think already at this point the NPA has selected a very large portion of their Mega Evolutions, and the GBA has not. So basically what's happening at this stage in the draft, and especially at my next wheel where I pick up my 4 and 5 picks, there's a stark difference in the amount of Mega Evolutions that are selected by the NPA compared to by the GBA. So what we are actually able to do in that situation, kind of a strategy thing, we're able to pick our Mega Evolutions later because we know that we're not going to snipe each other. We already know what Mega each person wants, so we don't have to, you know, pick in advance to get a really good Mega, when I believe, honestly, at this point, the NPA only had like 2 people who didn't have a Mega Evolution, maybe only 1 by this point in the draft. So I'm able to put my Mega Evolution on the back burner and basically just pick everything else a little bit earlier than I would have been able to otherwise. And that's honestly a really big luxury to have, especially when you're the #1 overall pick, because you have to wait a long time for you to be able to have a second pick. Unfortunately, I was still able to get like Hawlucha and the Hydreigon that I did want ultimately with the Mega Scizor. Unfortunately, no Mega Scizor, but yeah, but it is what it is. So I'm able to pick up some of these mons a little bit earlier than maybe I would have otherwise. And with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and grab my boy Seismitoad, old reliable, with my round 4 pick here. I believe it is my tier 4 in this draft. You've already seen me use Seismitoad plenty of times, so I don't really need to go into what it can do. But it's just a very good glue mon for my team, a nice water immunity, and it is my first Stealth Rocker on this team. Also a good knockoff user, which is certainly very nice, especially in 8-mon format, as sometimes you're going to have mons on your team that maybe don't match up particularly well against the other set of 8 mons. That's a complaint I often hear about 8-mon format, is that it's a lot more likely, I guess, for someone to have a bad matchup, or for, you know, like a game to be virtually unwinnable due to matchup, like due to certain mons just not being viable in a certain matchup. And when you have mons that have like moves like knockoff and rocks, like good utility moves like that, those can be brought to any game. So what you're seeing is like a lot of mons on my team that should be able to be brought to pretty much any matchup, which basically mitigates the whole matchup disadvantage possibility for 8-mon formats. So picked up Seismitoad for one of my 2 options, good bulky water for my draft, and then I'm going to pick up Entei as my next mon, giving me a little bit more priority for my team. I liked Entei's matchup at this point against the vast majority of the NPA coaches, and I felt like Entei would be able to help abuse the fact that the fairy types are looking really strong against my draft at this stage, where really any bulky fairy type, despite the fact that actually the GBA had most of the good fairy types at this point, I still was a little concerned about them because I have a Hydreigon. I need to have a way to basically abuse the fairy types that are going to switch into my Hydreigon. That's always going to happen. Fairies are like the #1 switch into a Hydreigon, and having something like Entei that can immediately punish that with potentially Banded Sacred Fire or Extreme Speed, or any banded move. Entei has a lot of really powerful moves on the physical side. It can also be kind of special. It can be kind of hot like a Geo Caliente. There's a lot of things that Entei can do that I'm excited to try out here against the NPA coaches. I've had Entei once in the past, and it's just been a while. Literally, I haven't had Entei since my first season ever of draft format, way back in like 2000. Might be 2015 at this point. I played this format a long time. And yeah, it's just been a while since I've had Entei, and I think it'll be fun to use it again here for sure. Also gives me a nice fairy resist. It gives me a nice fire resist as well. I guess it'd be my 3rd fire resist at this point. I guess more importantly, what I was trying to think of is it gives me a nice ice resist. It's my first ice resist on the team. Seismitoad is my bulky water, does not resist ice, so having that switch into ice moves is definitely something that is nice to have. So that is the team so far. We have 5 picks in, still planning to get my Mega Evolution in the last round because I feel like I can wait that long. And with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and pick some of the other mons that I think I need for my team. I'm lacking a Steel type right now. I'm lacking a Grounded Poison. I'm lacking something to switch into Thousand Arrows if I happen to face one of the Zygarde forms. So those are some of the roles that I'm trying to fill here with my remaining picks. And what I opt to actually do here is make a decision between 2 Steel types that remain in the lower tiers. Mostly I have lower tier picks remaining, and then my Mega Evolution. So I don't really have the best of Steel types to choose from. Ultimately, I was selecting between something like Doublade and something like a Scavalier for my Steel type here for this team. And I went really back and forth on both of those options, but I actually ended up going with a Scavalier for that role, specifically because I feel like a Scavalier is slightly more versatile than Doublade, especially when it comes to its items and its ability. Doublade is very straightforward. It's pretty much always going to be like a Swords Dance Shadow Sneak type of set, maybe with Iron Head, maybe with Rock Slide. It doesn't have too many options that it can really do, plus it's restricted to running a Violate. If you run a Doublade with any other item, I would be very surprised. Maybe like a Life Orb is a possibility, but you almost always see a Violate on Doublade. And a Scavalier can run a variety of items, like Leftovers, Assault Vest, Choice Band, I guess Rocky Helmet, Akaberry. It has a lot of options that it can run, and I just really like that versatility, especially for an 8-mon draft. Again, going back to that versatility that I think an 8-mon draft has to have in order to be successful, I think a Scavalier was a little bit better for that. Plus, I just think it is a little bit stronger than Doublade as a Steel type in general, and even just by its base stats, it's able to do more damage. It's able to punish fairies better that are going to try to switch into my Hydreigon. So basically, this helps take some of that pressure off of Entei in the case where Entei may not have a great matchup against the opposing team. So I have my Fairy Killers now to help support the Hydreigon. I have my Steel type, I have second Ice Resist, I picked up a lot of key resistances there with the Scavalier, and now I'm going to go ahead and pick up my Tier 5. I still don't have a great Thousand Arrows switch in. My Scavalier, I guess, can switch in pretty well to Thousand Arrows. It has good natural bulk, good natural defense, so it can switch into something like Thousand Arrows, but it's not really the best at doing that. And also, I feel like my team is a little bit weak to something like Toxic Spikes at this point. They're not like, you know, I'm not super weak to them necessarily, but stuff like Entei, Seismitoad, Tapu Koko, they don't appreciate Toxic Spikes at all. Plus the Mega that I'm considering doesn't appreciate Toxic Spikes either. So I really wanted to have a way to potentially absorb those in a serious situation. And this is also a mod that I've been wanting to try for a while. Recently I've seen it do pretty well. Recently I've actually played against one in the Surge tournament, if you happen to follow that, not too long ago. And it's a low tier mod that potentially could have given me a lot of trouble depending on how the matchup played out, and that is Vileplume. Vileplume's a mod that it can do, it can't really do that many different things, I guess, but it is pretty good at what it does. Having Strength Sap allows it to basically instantly recover back to full health against physical attackers, which is pretty ridiculous. Even against special attackers, they can get back a ton of health. So Strength Sap is really just a busted move. I'm glad it's not distributed more than it really is right now. But yeah, Vileplume is just good. It's bulky. It's actually relatively strong offensively, for a tier 5 at least. And I think it's able to fill the role that I needed to fill here with this draft. I just like that it's weak to ice. I don't really like my situation, I guess, against ice types, especially because I don't necessarily see myself bringing both Entei and Escavalier into any particular matchup. I might, but it's unlikely just based upon how my team composition is formed. But even so, it's still pretty good as a tier 5. Okay, it's all relative to being a tier 5. It's still good enough for that role. I like that it has access to Sleep Powder. I like that its dual stabs remind me a little bit of Mega Venusaur. I'm very comfortable with Mega Venusaur. Vileplume does a lot of the same stuff, but it also has Strength Sap, which is pretty cool too. So yeah, we'll just kind of see how that goes. It's a cool Pokemon, and we will see how it works for my draft. But finally, at the moment you've all been waiting for, the final pick for my draft, the Mega Evolution, is going to be Mega Gallade. Mega Gallade was available as the last overall pick in this draft. Can you believe that? Mega Gallade. For a little bit of backstory, maybe those of you who might be a little bit newer to the format, Mega Gallade is widely considered one of the absolute best Megas in the format. Some people think it is #1, the best Mega in the format, and somehow it lasted all the way to the very last pick of the draft. I'm blown away. I'm going to take it though. It also fits my team really well. Basically, there was one NPA player who had not picked their Mega Evolution before I picked up Escavalier and Vileplume. I banked on them not taking Mega Gallade, and even if they did, Mega Medicham fit my team pretty well too, so either way it would have been fine. But yeah, the fact that Mega Gallade was around for the last round of the draft, and the fact that it supports my team so well from an offensive standpoint, giving me more priority in Shadow Sneak, giving me access to knockoff, giving me a really strong physical breaker, and giving me that dual fighting core that I love so much. My best drafts throughout my draft league history have been when I have had a dual fighting offensive core. And in the NPL Season 4, the season where I very nearly had a championship and had it stripped away due to some pretty nice BS, shout out to those of you who remember that game. I had Lucario and Breloom on that team, and those mons put in so much work for me throughout the season. In the Surge tournament, I rocked the Hawlucha Cobalion for several rounds throughout that tournament as well, ended up winning that championship. So I've had a lot of success with dual fighting cores and decided to stick with what I know best, stick with what I know works for me here with this draft, and go ahead and pick up that dual fighting core. Now, what kind of sucks about this draft, and I'll say this now, is that fairy types are really, really annoying for me. I do have still 2 good fairy killers, Entei and Escavalier. They will help me out against the fairies, and they can't just run a single hidden power to be able to deal with both of those since they don't share any weaknesses, and I'm happy with that. What I dislike is that Hawlucha, Gallade, and Hydreigon all share that fairy weakness. That makes it very annoying to deal with those fairy types, especially something like a Comfey or something like just something fast that has fairy coverage. That kind of thing is really annoying for my team to deal with. I think I can play around that, but it's definitely something that is a bit of a concern here for this draft, for sure. But that is the team that I'm bringing into the GBA NPA war. Let me know what you think about the team in the comments below, and be looking forward to the battles coming out here relatively soon. I wish I could tell you exactly when that's going to happen. Actually, I can't. I lied. I can. I figured that out not too long ago. The round one, week one, round one? Sure. Round one battles are going to come out on Tuesday, and that's going to be at 5 p.m. EST. You will see my first game from the war against mystery opponent. Not going to tell you who that is yet. You'll figure that out later, but I hope you guys are looking forward to that. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.